Good morning. My name is Rose Traub, and I'm here with my friend Brian, who we've done a couple of our live feeds before. And Brian came back from his summer hiatus where he worked himself silly, and he agreed to come and sit in again and do a little talk for us. Brian is a Alzheimer's patient, and he is here to talk about his journey. So here you go, Brian. Welcome.
Thanks, Rose. Good morning, everybody. I've been giving this some thought, Rose, after the group session that we had last week, and I think what I'd like to talk to people about today is getting more specific about the journey of going through Alzheimer's in the early stages, which is definitely, I think, where I am. And I think in the later stages, it really becomes to a large extent about the caregiver. And I'd like to talk about the early stages when the patient is capable of still caring for themselves, but just sharing my journey with the method that I've come up with dealing with Alzheimer's as a patient, as a person who's going through it. And I've had it now, I guess, almost 3 years since the surgeries.
Yes.
This is my knee surgeries, yeah.
Diagnosis is a little bit more than a year.
Yeah, but I started with having cognitive issues 3 years ago. And it started out as a result of 2 knee surgeries and reaction to the anesthesia, which apparently can be a trigger. Doesn't cause it, but it'll trigger it, yeah. So, my journey so far is almost 3 years, and I think that what you really have, looking back on it, I think what you really have to deal with is a tremendous amount of emotion. There's anger, there's frustration, there's intense sorrow, there's a tremendous sense of loss, there's fear for the future, and it's a real struggle, and I think that without being too self-serving, the things that you have to develop is strength, courage. Don't run away from it. I think you have to be very thoughtful. And I think you have to think about it. And that doesn't happen overnight. I mean, that is part of the journey. Mm-hmm. Because it definitely, what it starts with is fear and anxiety, anger, frustration. You have to identify what the symptoms are that you have. I think you have to be very honest with yourself, very realistic. And when you reach that point, and I think that has to be a goal, or I would recommend it as a goal to people, that's where the thoughtfulness and the courage comes in. Because you have to look at yourself honestly, know what your difficulties are, know what your symptoms are, and then try to work through it.
Have you ever felt denial?
No.
A lot I see in our group is a denial that this isn't happening to their loved one.
Well, I think it's very important. It's interesting you raise that, because from the patient standpoint, and looking back on it, I think it is incredibly important to have the courage to look at yourself and be aware of symptoms, because the earlier you can identify symptoms and the earlier you're willing to confront it, the earlier you're going to get care and the earlier you're going to get on the meds and you're going to do the things that you should be doing. There is no cure, of course, but believe me, I think that it does a fairly good job of slowing it down, because I never would have thought that I would be doing as well as I am now from where I started 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. when I was, reacting to anesthesia and painkillers, on a very large scale, I thought life was over, really. And,
Was it the unknown, not realizing what was happening to you? Or
no,
what?
I was
You knew it.
intensely aware of what was happening to me. Yeah, and I wasn't processing yet. I was just reacting, fear, anger. So, yeah, I think that early diagnosis is very, very important, because I think that the meds that you take and finding the right meds for you that you don't react to, that's a pretty long process. I mean, for me, it took almost a year and a half before I really got myself on the right meds. So yeah, early diagnosis, early treatment is very important. And I think at that point there would be a lot of people who would be denying it, putting it off. A lot of people, when I talk to them about it, their reaction to me, it seems like, well, they're denying it. Because people say, oh, well, I forget things all the time, I walk into the room and I can't remember why I'm there. Well, yeah, but let me tell you something, Alzheimer's is different. I mean, I had that for a long time, those types of things, for years. Now, that may be a very, very early indicator, I don't know, but there's a lot of people who have that who don't ultimately end up with Alzheimer's.
Right.
So I think you do have to draw that distinction between the two. But I think you have to be very self-aware as you get into your 50s and 60s and certainly 70s and 80s. And then I think you have to be thoughtful. You really have to think about it. And that's not easy, because you make this transition. I mean, not that the anger and the frustration and the fear and the anxiety ever disappears, but you do, in your progress, reach a point where you're able to control those things. And that's when you then transition into, okay, so what am I going to do about it? What am I going to try? And I think the biggest thing about that is, the last piece of that transition is that Alzheimer's, fear, anger, frustration, but stress. It is incredibly stressful to have Alzheimer's. I mean, you just think about it constantly. You're constantly saying, how long is it going to take? How much more time do I have? And stress actually feeds it. Stress makes your symptoms worse. So it really is truly the vicious cycle.
So do you feel that the summer you spent up in Indiana, working physical labor, do you think it helped with the stress?
I think that it's definitely a component. I think if you are busy and if you feel strong and active, your self-image is good, and that's uplifting, and I think that helps you get over the stress. But the point that I really want to make about stress is, I think stress is the most dangerous part of Alzheimer's for the patient, because if you're gonna give in to stress and to fear and to panic, then you're not going to be able to do what I'm suggesting today, and that is to really think about what you're doing. And along the way, as you start thinking about things and you become more analytical, it's going to become even more scary because you're focusing on it.
Right.
The example that I would come up with, and the other thing you have to understand about me, and I don't know whether, I gather that I'm kind of odd in this regard.
You're just so tuned in.
Well, I have times, I go into the fog, I come out of the fog, I go into the fog, I come out of the fog. I would say now that I deal with that much better, so I'm feeling better for longer periods of time. I am very aware, so when something starts happening, when I start feeling like I'm going into the fog, I think to myself, okay, so what am I missing? What am I not doing? And for me, symptoms were, in addition to memory, is just daydreaming, idle thoughts, repetitive thoughts. You know, I mean, I would get something in my
Like
head.
fixating.
Yeah, like people say, I have a song stuck in my head. Well, I didn't have songs stuck in my head. I had ideas, things, stuck in my head, words that I would just repeat over and over and over again. And you know what that does? That takes you out of the moment. You're not here. You're not in your real world. You're someplace, I don't know where the hell it is you go, but
Right.
you're not really in touch. And I think it's very, very important to stay focused and to stay in the moment. Because if you allow yourself to drift off, then you're just going to drift off.
Well,
So, to give you an example, one of the really things that, a lot of things happen and you think, wow, that's really interesting. And then as time goes on, you just forget them. I mean, I don't mean not forget Alzheimer's, forget them. I mean, it's just, you move on. But one of the things that really struck me one time was when I was really having difficulty remembering things, I thought to myself, that is so important, because ultimately, when you can't remember this fact and that fact, then you can't put those facts together and you can't think anymore. And you're lost.
so your reasoning is gone at that
You're
point.
lost, yeah. And that was a scary, scary moment, So what I've done is losing things, forgetting things. I think that you have to slow down the pace of your life, because your mind doesn't work as good as it once did. And I think that if you slow down, you're going to have to slow down in order to do what I have found to be very helpful. And that is, when I'm going to walk out to the barn at home, before I leave the house, I think, okay, I know I'm going out there for something, but before I leave, I've adapted the behavior saying, okay, what am I going out there for? And just try to repeat it. And that helps you hold on to it. So that when you get out to the barn and you can remember what you're supposed to do, you're not going to have stress. You're not going to get stressed. What the hell am I out here for?
Right.
In the rain, walking through, the mud and coming out and all that sort of stuff. That's very, very stressful. So you have to embrace those types of adaptive behaviors. Writing lists. Lists are good if you have things to do during the course of the week. So it's a reminder. But your daily activities, your things that you, hour to hour, I don't think that that's a good idea to write down lists like that, because you can become so dependent. You're not really thinking anymore. You're relying upon
I say
your
that to
lists.
people with GPS. You never learn how to get anywhere if you always use the GPS. So you got to try to think about this yourself.
Yeah,
But I can see how that could be a problem for sure.
And the best example that I can come up with, I've always been handy. I love working with my hands. And, I've got a good mind, and I've used my mind principally in life. But using my hands and using my body is very therapeutic for me. Always has been. So we replaced our kitchen and 2 bathrooms at home in Indiana. And the taking out of the old cabinets was going to cost $850. And I thought to myself, I can do that. That's grunt work. That's not skill work. And I wanted to save the cabinets to put in my shop out in the barn. So I did it. But what was a real surprise to me was that doing that work involved a lot of tools. Hammers, sledgehammers, pries, drills, saws, tape measures, all of this sort of stuff. I couldn't keep track of the tools.
What went for what, or just
No,
where
no,
they
no,
went
no.
to?
Where is this? You just couldn't do it, and it was crazy. It was nuts.
Frustrating.
Frustrating, shocking. So what I came up with was, okay, so now we just gotta slow down, and when you're gonna put the hammer down, you say, okay, I'm putting the hammer down. Here it is. And where am I going? Out in the garage. What am I going out to the garage for? Because, I mean, it's just unbelievable. From the kitchen to the garage is 10 paces. We get out to the damn garage, everything. I say, what the hell am I doing
What am I
out
doing
here?
here?
And it's not like, oh, I do that all the time.
Yeah.
No, but you can't get through the day. Because all you do is go from one forgetfulness to another forgetfulness
And you
to
can't
another.
recall when you get there at any
Oh,
point.
yeah. Okay, why am I going out to the barn? Why am I going out to the, what's...
So cue yourself
Absolutely.
so that you can do it. But people don't think about that.
No.
I mean, we don't.
No. Because you don't have to.
Right.
When you don't have Alzheimer's, you don't have to because your mind just does it. But you don't do it anymore,
That's very intuitive of you to figure that out, though. A lot of people don't.
That's what I want to share.
Yeah.
That's what I want to share because... again, I really come back to the fact that if you don't or you can't do things like that, then it just becomes stressful, and stress feeds the situation. I mean, not that I'm perfect at it, but if I deal with stress, if I'm on top of stress, and I slow my pace down. The calmness allows your mind to function better. So you're getting not 100%, but you're getting whatever, like if I'm down, if I've lost 90% of the ability, well, I'm getting 90%.
Right.
I'm not frustrated and I'm only getting 70% down. And then also, the other thing is acceptance too, Don't get angry with yourself. That's the way it is, and you're doing the best that you can, and doing the best that you can is the best that you can do.
And that's okay.
And that's okay, because it's got to be.
And we see that so often in group, when someone will say, and I told him not to do that. And don't argue. Don't make the stress worse, because there's nothing to gain from that.
Right.
It only causes more.
Yeah. And, not to minimize the caregiver's frustration. And they have their own journey, but
Well, it becomes part of their journey.
we have our journey, the patient does, and a lot of it is, and I don't think it's a male-female thing. I think anybody who's dealing with this type of a loss of function of mind is going to internalize it, and I don't think that that's a good idea.
Share it.
You really do have to share it, because there's something therapeutic about it, And
That takes a strong constitution, though, because I do see so often in group the family members that are there, the caregivers, their loved one is not accepting that this is happening to them, and you can see that causes that frustration on the level of the caregiver.
Oh, yeah.
And if the acceptance was there, if they could embrace this and work through it together, it's got to be an easier journey on both sides.
And the last part of this that I really want to share with people is I've been Catholic all my life, and it's not a Catholic thing. But with all that goes on, and it really is a terminal illness, as is cancer, as is heart disease, as is a lot of things. But it's your long journey, and it's kind of interesting that with every other thing, even cancer, there's hope, right? Maybe I'll beat it. You don't have that with Alzheimer's. God willing, someday we will. But right now, it's not there. I mean, the doctors are very, very honest about that. And our doctor up in Indiana is a wonderful man. Dr. Farlow, he is into research, travels all over the world and presents. And we talk, and he's very much aware of what's going on. He's very much aware of what's going on, but it's not there yet. And I don't think that it's really terribly close. I think they're still kind of groping around for it. And once they find it, then it's going to take a while for it to go through the process. So I don't think I'm going to make it. I just don't think I'm going to make that. I hope that I do, but I don't think that I'm going to. So it is for me, and I think for everybody in whatever stage they're in right now, you ultimately know that not only were you going to die from it, but there will come a time when you're just not going to be here anymore, but you're still going to be alive. And that's kind of unique, and that's really kind of sad, and that's kind of difficult to deal with.
It's hard to grasp.
So how do you deal with that? Well, my answer to that is, I'm not Catholic. I don't care whether it's Jesus. I don't care whether it's Allah, or whether it's Elohim, or the Eastern religions. I think that being able to place yourself in the hands of your God is a wonderful way. I don't think it's a crutch, because I've always believed in God. Various times I've had my doubts, don't we all? But it's a wonderful way to get calmness, just, God, I don't know why I'm here, but I'm here, and
Help
I'm
me
going
out,
to do the
bud.
best that
Yeah.
I can, but I place myself in your care, ultimately, and that is very calming and a great release of the stress, and
To have a belief at any
Yeah.
point in time of your life, it's so important.
yeah.
It
Yeah.
is. So I can imagine at this stage how deeply important it is. And those that don't, I don't know how they get through every day.
Well, you can place yourself in God's hands. I mean, you can just consciously do that. You can just sit looking at a piece of art, or looking, put yourself in the woods someplace and just relax.
Yeah.
Put yourself in the hands of God, and I think that type of relaxation, that's the only place you're going to find it. Unless you want to get into drugs or something, but that's
not going to help the end result
That's
at all.
going to make things a whole lot worse.
That's it.
Yeah.
God forbid. I can't thank you enough
So
for
that's what I
coming
have
out
for you.
today.
We're at
I
21,
appreciate
22
you,
minutes.
Brian. I know you guys are going home for Thanksgiving. You'll be back for the cold, cold winter.
Yep.
If you guys ever get a winter. So you
Yeah.
never know. But thank you for
So
coming
we'll be
by.
here then we'll be here for a good while.
Good. So we'll see you in January.
Great.
Thanks again.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you.
Yep.